Hey everyone, welcome back to the fourth episode of Matriarch Motivation. I wanted to create this podcast because I believe there is a gap in the motivational speeches in general, because it is a male-dominated venue, as well as the type of motivation that I wanted to hear from women I wasn't finding in a consistent way. So I wanted to, the deep belief system I have is to put out into the world what you wish to see. And although there are I don't want to say one-offs, but some-offs of incredible speakers and women who are inspiring and powerful and have written great, meaningful speeches with incredible messages directed at the women of our generation, the women here with us today, that there is not enough. And my duty is to make that choir louder by adding to the voices in it. I believe that women have a deep-seated emotional and spiritual power that is very different from the type of power men speak about and are inspired by. So by us women sharing our stories and sharing the places that we find our power come from, and how we level up and how we fight and how we protect and how we develop and thrive ourselves in this world, I think that we should have more voices doing that. And here I am. So this was going to be a 4-part series. I believe it'll now be a 5-part series, where the first story I want to share with women is my journey to become a surrogate. So I am now happily and proudly 4 months pregnant with a baby girl for intended parents located in France. I am located on the west coast of Canada. This is a beautiful husband and husband couple who I am extremely fond of now, and they're like my brothers. And the journey that I took to become a surrogate is one that I've had many people tell me that I should share. So why not? Here I am. And who am I? My name is Julia. I am the founder of Pretty Aggressive Industries. I developed a company with the passion of putting out into the world what I wish to see. The company was born in a place where I came from rock bottom and wanted to find something in the world to help and guide me through my path, and wasn't finding that. And therefore, my only option was to create it. So around the age of 25 to 27, I wrote a book titled Beyond Damage, which I self-published. It is the aggressive recovery from the toxic mother-daughter bond. And I came from a intergenerational or transgenerational abuse cycle and legacy in my family, and I wanted to end it. I no longer wanted to feel like I was drowning and struggling through life without the tools of resiliency. So I built them, and I wrote a book on how to help others build those tools. From there, I became a recovery coach for women, adult women hoping to thrive instead of simply survive this life, by helping them and coaching them through building those resiliency tools one-on-one. And then that translated into me building kind of a little empire where I wanted to connect mind, body, and spirit. I'm now a certified personal trainer, a certified nutrition coach, and a certified transformation specialist, where I help people through behavioral change and then commitment strategies in order to keep those behavioral changes in their lives. And from there, I have also co-hosted #EnlightenedBitches with my best friend during COVID, which we will get into in this chapter of the surrogacy story. And now I have developed this podcast, which you can find on YouTube, Spotify, Anchor, and probably Google, called Matriarch Motivation. So here we are, motivating the matriarch. And if you hopefully have listened through the 3 previous segments, I went through my beginning of ovarian cyst ruptures in November 2018, and then my journey through choosing surrogacy as my treatment for that, and then also my decision through surrogacy and how that started to look for me, why I chose that. And now, after deciding to become a surrogate in February 2019, which is March is when COVID kind of dropped on Canada. It was around March 17th, 18th, which are, I believe, one of those days was when childcare providers closed down here on the West Coast, and I was laid off my job, my career of 4 years as sales, marketing, and international marketing expansion and branding and social media for a high-end shellfish company. So this was my stable job. This was my 40 hours a week for 4 years, where I had built my skills and done a lot of work at becoming who I wanted to be and building pride in my career and my socioeconomic status, and building a lot of my identity as a person. So where surrogacy came in, I felt very confident and stable in the career I had, and that taking mat leave from that in after 9 months of pregnancy would be perfectly easy for me to walk through. And after the surrogacy, I wouldn't need mat leave. So, but that it would be provided for me for my final month and then my recovery month. But as COVID started to shut down parts of the world, and I built a bond and connection with the chosen intended parents, and let's start there, because a lot of people are curious when I tell people about the surrogacy, or people ask questions. Many of those questions are based on, how did you choose the parents? Who are they? Do you know them? Where are they located? How involved are they? And the greatest thing that going through a surrogacy company provides is you are able to unapologetically match yourself with people who have designed a profile explaining who they are and what they want out of a surrogacy. You get to read the lives they're showing you that they live. And yes, I went through a couple intended parents profiles where I'm like, that is not for me. I do not want to be involved with those people for the next 9 months, let alone possibly multiple years. And also with some intended parents, very clearly communicating that they want no connection with the surrogate afterwards, and that they only really wish to participate in the pregnancy during medical updates or like verification of the life and the health of the pregnancy, and that a relationship with the surrogate isn't really something they have in their minds, that they have a housing unit for a baby, then they get the baby, and then they live their lives. And as improbable as it may sound in the beginning, my wish to become a surrogate was to expand my family connections, was to form a bond with a family that I have grown a child for, and for them to wish to have a bond with me as someone who's offered them that opportunity and experience. I want to watch the child grow, that even if it's not mine legally or biologically, that and not to have say, not to have control, not to have an impart, but to simply enjoy the life that I helped grow for 9 or 10 months, and to be able to cherish that. And I was looking for parents who had that same dream, that a surrogate would hold a special place in their life, and that they had honor and reverence and gratitude for that, and that we could share that as a bond between us, between our families, and that my daughter would know this child because she's going to be experiencing me being pregnant, and then have the experience of wondering where that child has gone. So, and to explain that it's just gone away is not exactly an experience I want to offer my own child. So I was lucky enough to find intended parents and a profile that explained that this is what they hoped for too. And this happened to be a gay male couple from France who apparently, as I've learned, surrogacy isn't really a thing in France, that women don't medically house babies to give to another family that can't have one. And so for the intended parents to have sought out a company in another country to be able to provide them with this experience shows their level of commitment to having a child born of one of spiritually both their genetics, and that became a very firm bond where we set up, I believe, an initial interview over the phone where we were able to meet through video and ask each other questions and talk about each other's lives and confirm ideas or feelings that we got from the written profiles that were shared between the two of us. And this is all facilitated extremely well from the owner of the company, who develops a relationship with every single person who comes into the company, both intended parents and potential surrogates. So as I chose them and they chose me, it was a mutual choosing, which is pretty blessed. So as we began that journey in, I believe, late February, Europe began to experience COVID before us. So as I was having video chats and starting to text and message with them, I was hearing their experiences as their schools shut down and their communities shut down and their access to outside and socializing and the safety protocols and measures that were being put in their lives. I was hearing about it before it started happening over here. And as our community started to shut down, my life started to change a lot. So as I went from someone with a very stable job and a very stable living situation, COVID took my job, stole my job, and then also deleted childcare from my life, and also did that to my best friend, where she lost childcare but as an essential worker. This is the woman, my best friend Claire, who I formed an incredible bond with over the past 2 years. She lost childcare but continued to need to go to work as an essential worker, as an outreach registered nurse. And so her amount of stress, I mean, I'm honestly in these situations after all of the bullshit I've been through in my life and the huge amount of catastrophes I've faced, usually of my own doing and my own perspective. I was very nonchalant about not having to go back to work. And the interesting thing that happened at the same time was in the end of January, I had experienced, I believe, my 4th ovarian cyst rupture. And the preceding days at work for me were excruciating. So in late January and early February, while I'm entering into the surrogacy journey and also having a full work schedule and being a single mom, not in a negative way, and having started building my pretty aggressive industries business, I was struggling severely through another stage of recovery from an ovarian cyst rupture. And all of these things going on in my life were really wearing me down. I wasn't just burning the candle at six ends. I had this uncontrolled process of my body experiencing and then recovering from the trauma of another rupture, just as like this wet blanket over everything else I was attempting to just have in my life. Parenting, work, physical activity, day-to-day, anything. So I started to visit, I had appointments with my doctor where I decided that in order to scale back the amount that was on my plate, I was going to request, due to medical reasons, to be able to start working part-time and be able to have those medical issues and stress leave, EI supplement the 20 hours a week I would be losing, and to be able to use that as time to recover and process and recuperate, as well as be building pretty aggressive in the background, not to be launching that business, but to be doing the writing, creating the social media, and essentially building a backlog framework for a business I wanted to eventually mold into and leave my 9-to-5 desk career working for someone else and finally launch a company on my own and work for myself. So all of this was just too much. So the day I actually delivered that paperwork, that medical request to my boss, was the day our company decided to shut down. And if you were not essential, you were laid off. And I went from expecting a 20-hour week to 0, with no promise of ever coming back full bore. So also my living situation at the time was I was managing rent and bills and life very, very well. But I wanted to be making a change to not being dependent on paychecks from a company and an employer, and to becoming dependent on income from my own business. So my financial situation had to change, and I was starting to think through how I was going to do that, how I was going to change my living situation so that my budget became much lower than what it was at the time, and still safely and securely care for and house my child and myself. Now, the amount of upset this world change caused for my best friend was it's laughable now. I can see how upset she was at the time. But as I was saying, the amount of skills and tools I've built to simply just laugh at these circumstances is quite substantial. I'm quite proud of myself that I took the experience as, oh my God, like I asked the universe to give me less work and allow me to spend more time with my child and give me room and space to recover from this ovarian cyst rupture. But I didn't mean COVID. Oh my God. Like, that was not what I meant. Like, if I wished for this and put this on the world, like, I know that's absolutely not anywhere in the realm of possible. But I wished for the outcome that was that COVID delivered to my life specifically, and that my best friend and I decided that to help us both out economically with childcare, as well as her needing to go to work, as well as me needing a much more financially frugal situation for myself and my daughter to move into her 900 square foot apartment with 2 bedrooms with herself and her daughter. So that was how I spent the bottom half of my March 2020. And just on the cusp of it, I was able to still squeak in an appointment to have myself go through medical screening for the surrogacy, so that everyone involved, the company, the intended parents, and the fertility clinic, and myself, all knew that my ovaries and uterus were classified as healthy, as if not optimum enough to hold a pregnancy for the surrogacy. So it was actually an incredibly odd experience to, I believe, ferries from Vancouver Island to the mainland had shut down or were extremely limited. But I was able to just get like a last minute flight from Vancouver Island just over into downtown Vancouver. And the world had become a ghost town. I believe it was March 20th, 22nd, and everything had just closed down. People were scared, people were frightened and isolating. And after I walked off that plane, it was a beautiful, sunny, like early spring morning. And I decided to walk all the way from Cole Harbour to, I believe, Broadway and Cambie to the fertility clinic. And it was a stunning, wonderful walk where the city was a ghost town and the air was crisp and the sun was warm after a shitty, horrible winter. And I reveled in it. I loved the experience. And one thing that I've granted myself throughout the surrogacy is when I go to medical appointments, especially the embryo transfers, I dress myself up like it's a special occasion. I treat myself. I make sure my hair is done. I'm wearing something nice. I've brought my favorite book. Like I really enjoy the day that I take to have those experiences during the surrogacy, and it's something I definitely don't regret, and I'm glad I participate in. But soon after that one appointment that would have become a series of the medical screening, and then I believe soon after would have booked an embryo transfer. So I would have gone from March, end of March, into whenever my next menstrual cycle had ended and would have started, to breeze right into April, I would become pregnant, hopefully with an embryo created from one of the intended dad's sperm and an egg that they had chosen from a friend who donated an egg that's all been placed and transferred in a clinic, a medical fertility clinic in Vancouver, and then becoming the baby that I carry. So that whole process shut down and stopped. And the intended parents and I were left in this waiting game. And as we're both excited to start this journey of, everything's going smoothly, all the boxes are being checked, all the processes being marked off, to halt. And I am actually so grateful for the experience I had during this time, because it gave me and the intended parents this beautiful opportunity to continue creating a bond. And just because nothing was going on with the progression of the pregnancy didn't mean that we couldn't continue building our relationship. So almost every 2 to 3 days, there was a video sent back and forth of, how are you doing? What are you up to? What have you been spending your time with? Tell me about this part of your life. Who are you? Where did you learn that? What does that mean for you? What do you hope for in your child? How do you parent currently? Where did you learn that? And to bring in these two beautiful people that I was building a relationship with and a bond with, who I was going to be growing a child for, was just an incredible experience. I'm not sure how much, I haven't been granted their permission, so I'm not releasing their names, and I'm not releasing identifying details about them other than their location and their relationship status. But to go through COVID, where my life has changed drastically, and for them to get to know what I'm all about and how I live my life, and for me to get the same from them, and to just build a friendship, and to create a depth of care for one another, that what they're going through in France in relation to COVID and their lives and their work and their jobs and those changes and their access to their community and friends. And then the same with my life here and how that's changed and how I've started living with my best friend, and my daughter now gets the daily sister, and that I went from like a globe-trotting business mogul and like sales and marketing to being basically a homemaker and like being childcare in an apartment during COVID, and getting like creating structure and getting the girls out for daily nature walks, and then doing lunch, and then doing laundry, and then giving them downtime, and then bike rides, and then having dinner on the table when my best friend comes home, and this process, this rotation, and it was just a crazy, incredible time. And to have all this room to love my daughter and love the family unit in this home, and at the same time be developing pretty aggressive, and to be working on my certifications. So in the 7 months of COVID, I became certified as a personal trainer, and certified as a nutrition coach, and certified as a transformation specialist. And the amount of dedication I had to my studies and to self-discipline and to continue working out and working on my body and finding ways to exercise and go out for morning runs, and coordinating a schedule with the other parent in this house, and us exchanging parenting responsibilities and supporting one another through all of this. And the whole time waiting for my surrogacy to start, which it did. So in the, I believe, middle of May, June, the fertility clinic that had to shut down all non-essential services, all non-essential procedures due to COVID restrictions, was now able to open up and start. But it was interesting that in the gap, no one knew when these would be. So I had no timeline. So I just continued living my life. And that included things I was doing for personal training and things I was doing such as dating. So at the time, I had started dating someone and not knowing when to expect to have to tell the person I'm dating that I'm about to be pregnant, and not by them, and what that's going to look like being in a relationship with me. And at the same time, we're using COVID as a time to work on my body and work on my physique and reach new goals, and to have started exploring what steroids might look like, and like low level. So to have started experimenting very lightly with a small steroid cycle, and to feel like I would have been done and never do that again, and then my surrogacy would start, to have all of this impact, how that process is going to go as it pops up randomly in mid-May. And for my surprise to have to adjust, and all the other people in my life to adjust to all of these other new things. So I had to communicate to the person I was dating that surrogacy was a part of my life, and that it was now on a go, that this is where I'm going, and they don't get a say and they don't get a choice, and either they're coming with me or they can fuck off, because that's the way I live my life. And to have a phone call with a fertility doctor who's like, I'm sorry, what are those medications for? Can you, like, why are you, but that's not what those are. And I'm like, I know, but I'm telling you, they're used for bodybuilding and mass growth and like endurance, like, why would I lie to you about what they're for? I'm telling you. And for everyone in the situation to freak out about those medications being in my body, and what that's going to affect and how that's going to change, and if I can still, and the company owner being like, oh fuck, why did you do that? And for me being like, oh fuck, why did I do that? And to like, I was just living my life. I was just continuing to move forward. And for surrogacy to put a stop and a go button on different aspects, kind of like, um, and, but for me to breathe through all of that, and to take it in stride, because I've spent years building life skills and resiliency tools to cope with anything that's thrown my way, that my old self would have drank myself to death and would have sabotaged all my relationships and would have crawled into a hole of self-pity and victimhood, and it's everybody else's fault, and that it's not my fault, and you made me, and so and I couldn't, and I can't, and well, I don't have control of that. To look at all the situations and to find my power and voice, and to tell people either too bad or okay, what next? What now? And so what could have been stressful craziness just becomes okay. And then the whole time forming a brand new relationship with people who, learning about what they're all about. I mean, the COVID really changed what I think most people experience in a surrogacy. And I think it's certainly, I can look at it as I could have lived in a place of that being really difficult or really hard. But I came out of COVID. I'm not sure if it's still going on or still, I know it exists for a lot of people still, and our society is forever changed. But I came out of that experience, came through this experience, and I'm still experiencing it like one of the most incredible years of my life, that I accomplished so much, and not just the business and the certifications. I've accomplished so much as a mother and as a person and as a friend and as a part of an ecosystem that surrounds me. And I'm proud and happy with the way everything has been laid out. So following a first embryo transfer, to have the green light start, and having a few trips over to the fertility clinic, with one of those trips being the first embryo transfer on June, I want to say 24th of 2020. We'll talk about that in the next chapter here, I guess part 5 of this 4-part series. And yeah, please join me, and I hope you've enjoyed the story so far. And the next part of the journey is a very hard but very powerful one. So join me again, and I'll see you next time.